It is now 47 after all. This week we are going to be looking at the phenomenon known as Star Trek, the TV series, the movies, the cast, and of course the razzle-dazzle special effects. In a few moments, an interview with Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, but first an overview from Mr. Siegel, Joel that is.
Good morning, Joe. It was on the air for just 3 seasons, just 79 episodes. It's been off the air for 20 years, but no TV series before or since has had the devoted, relentless, fanatical fans Star Trek has. They are called Trekkies. I am not one of them, which allows me to view the phenomenon with some objectivity.
Space, the final frontier.
Myth. Star Trek was a hit TV show taken off the air before its time by Klingon TV executives. Truth. Star Trek was never a hit TV show. In 3 seasons on NBC, it never cracked the top 25. In 1966, it was on Thursday nights opposite My Three Sons on CBS and Bewitched here on ABC, the number 8 rated show. The next season, it moved to Fridays. It was opposite Gomer Pyle, the nation's number 3 rated show. True fans are called Trekkies. They meet in conventions, publish learned texts, lists of casts, plots, and idiosyncrasies. A fan knows Mr. Spock never smiles. A Trekkie knows exactly when and where he did. A Trekkie knows what a tribble is, a furry creature, a living smoke alarm who knows when an evil Klingon is about. But only a Trekkie knows how many there are.
Hundreds of thousands. 1,771,561.
You say, bang, zoom!
That's the Ralph Cramden approach to Warp Drive, and The Honeymooners are the only other TV series that spawned a similar group of super loyal fans. They hold conventions, they've unearthed lost episodes, they've kept their hallowed traditions alive, and their show on the air, like their brother Trekkies. But Star Trek is the only TV series in history that's moved lock, stock, and force field to the movies, where the 3 Star Trek features have grossed $240 million. And more proof of Star Trek's unique place in America's imagination. NASA named this test shuttle the Enterprise.
My friends, I can't ask you to go any further. Dr. McCoy and I have to do this. The rest of you do not.
Admiral, we're losing precious time.
What course, please, Admiral?
Mr. Scott?
I'd be grateful, Admiral, if you'd give the word.
Gentlemen, may the wind be at our backs. Stations, please.
And the wind has blown fair for Captain Kirk. Star Trek IV opens the day before Thanksgiving. There will be lines, 1 million hardcore Trekkies camping out all night to be the first to see it. All this week we'll be meeting and talking with the Star Trek crew. Tomorrow morning, Joan will be beamed from our studio on board the Starship Enterprise, which is somewhere in the far reaches of the universe, a strange, exotic, dangerous place called Hollywood. It's 10 minutes before the hour, and Joan will be back with Leonard Nimoy, or Mr. Spock, if you will, after this from Magnavox.
Well, the crew of the Starship Enterprise is blasting off again, traveling to where no man has gone before. And that means there's another Star Trek movie. It is called Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Leonard Nimoy is back as Mr. Spock, and he's back as our guest. It's nice to have you here. I've had more fun looking not only at this movie, but behind the scenes of the movie. For all the Trekkies out there who are hanging on your every word, how much can you tell us about what the movie is about?
Well, in the 23rd century, which is the time of Star Trek, Earth is in terrible trouble. We, the crew of the Enterprise, have to go back 300 years in time to now to pick up something here on Earth that no longer exists in the 23rd century and carry it into the 23rd century to save the planet.
And if anyone wants to stop and think about that for a minute, there's a lot of humorous implications there, and you really do use those, and that's really something kind of fresh and new also.
Yeah, we've done some pretty serious and heavy drama in the last 3 films, lots of life and death and Sturm und Drang and operatic emotions and stuff like that, and we decided it was time to lighten up.
All right, we have a scene from the movie. I want to show them right now. Spock and Kirk are in San Francisco, and that's definitely another world to them.
I believe I shall begin by making use of this map. I have the distance and bearing which were provided by Commander Uhura. we juxtapose our coordinates, we should be able to find our destination, which lies at 283.7 degrees.
I think we'll find what we're looking for at the Cetacean Institute in Sausalito. A pair of humpbacked whales named George and Gracie.
How do you know this?
Simple logic.
Does it mean exact change?
Let's do a little bit of folklore, okay? Star Trek folklore, because a lot of people had a lot of questions they wanted me to ask you. Well, let's start with the handshake. Am I doing it right?
The handshake?
You do it. The Vulcan.
You mean this?
I mean the hand sign.
That. If you
Okay.
can't do it, you're in a lot of trouble. The first time we introduced that into one of the episodes, it was an episode called Amok Time, where we had to go back to Spock's home planet of Vulcan because Spock was engaged to be married. The lady that I was doing the scene with, she had to do it, and she had trouble. She struggled with it, and we got her hand in the position off camera, just like I'm doing right now, and hit it and got it ready so that when it came time to do it, she had it ready and she just popped it. It comes from an Orthodox Jewish ceremonial gesture. This is the shape. This is actually the shape of the letter Shin in the Hebrew alphabet. And that letter is the first letter in the word Shaddai, which means the Almighty. So the suggestion is they're using a symbol of the Almighty's name when they bless the congregation.
How strange has it been for you to really be able to see yourself there in living color on screen as you grow older over the years? Because none of the rest of us have
Well, it's
that
quite
happen to us.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's quite extraordinary, really. And in a way, I feel a great sense of accomplishment. You know, to still be around and still be acceptable doing it for so long, and for people to want to still continue to see it for so long. I think in this picture in Star Trek IV, the work that I did as Spock is the most relaxed I've ever done, and certainly. The interaction between myself and the other characters is the most comfortable I've ever been, and I think it is because of the passage of time. There are some things that happened between us, particularly between Bill Shatner and myself in this movie, that could only happen after working together for 20 years.
I have a hunch that we'd all be a lot happier discussing this over dinner.
You guys like Italian?
No.
Yes.
Yeah,
No. Yes.
No.
Yes. I love Italian. And so do you.
Yes. I never dreamed that I would have this kind of longevity in this thing. When we made the series in 66, 67, 68, we were a moderate success, never really a hot show. It wasn't until the syndication, 72, 3, 4, that the show really started to take off and became and still is the #1 syndicated show in television history. It's quite an accomplishment. I feel very proud of being part of that.
Well, it's such a wonderful series, and it has such it's really got great values and the morals that people learn from, and it's really enjoyable seeing it once again, even 20 years later. Nice to see you.
Thank you, and nice to see you.
We'll be back in just a moment.
And tomorrow, a tour of Star Trek's USS Enterprise. Later in the morning, this morning, Billie Jean King.
Yesterday, I talked with Leonard Nimoy, or as he is better known to Star Trek devotees, Mr. Spock, commander on board the Starship Enterprise. You know, I've always wanted to tour that trusty spaceship that's gone where no spaceship has gone before. You too? Well, it's docked at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, and Leonard Nimoy told me the sure way to get on board would be to stand up and say just one word: energize. It worked. Scotty. Oh, is this great?
Well, it's a great pleasure to welcome you aboard, lassie.
So this is the Starship Enterprise.
Aye. Should I give you a wee tour of the rest of the ship?
Oh, I would love that. Where are we going? This is great.
I must explain that every floor has a different color, so we know exactly where we are at any one time. But now, I would really like you to have a visit with Dr. McCoy. He's a grand person, and why don't we just send you in there with him?
To sick bay?
To sick bay.
Okay,
Right.
I'll go chat for a while.
All
I'll
right,
catch
love.
up with you, okay?
I'm not a magician, Spock. Just an old country doctor.
I would describe him as basically, as they say, a country doctor.
A country doctor? What do you mean?
He has a very, very A guy who happens to be on board this ship for some secretive reason, who disagrees with all the modern futuristic type of thing that is coming ahead, that he likes to get back to the old bedside manner.
Do you know what you get if you feed a tribble too much?
A fat tribble.
No, you got a whole bunch of hungry little tribbles.
Hi. Oh, I had a great talk with Doc McCoy.
Oh, he's a grand man. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that. But I tell you, now I have to show you something that you'll really find fascinating.
All right, show me the way.
All right.
Oh, look at this. Now, where are we?
We're in my engine room, my dear.
All right, what powers this engine? What powers the Starship Enterprise?
Well, the whole thing is powered by warp engines, which are run by dilithium crystals, the matter and the antimatter. And from there, of course, you get the final answer. You go into warp speed.
Kirk here.
Captain, the impulse engine's control circuits are fused solid.
What about the warp drive control circuits?
Aye, we can cross-connect the controls, but it'd make the ship almost impossible for one man to handle.
Worry about your miracle, Scotty. I'll worry about mine. Get to work.
Aye, sir.
There is a replica, I think it's about 11-foot replica in the Smithsonian of the Starship Enterprise.
13.6 feet.
Okay, 13.6 feet.
And it is the only piece of fiction in the whole place.
What is it about this ship that is so special?
Honey, I don't know. It just has to do with an awful lot of particularly vibrant kind of love that goes on between a family of actors who portray a show and the people whose living room we enter. What else can we do but return the love? And I do my best to return it every chance I get. Certainly.
It's very special. It's what dreams are made of.
Yeah.
Being guided through these hallowed halls, you could almost forget you were on a studio lot and not hurtling millions of miles through blackest space. My next stop, the bridge to meet the crew of the Enterprise. Join me there in a couple of minutes.
And I'm Don Pardo. When last we left Joan, she was on board the Starship Enterprise, about to meet the cast of Star Trek, the same cast that's made the TV series and movies come alive, as they say. And that includes the new Star Trek movie called The Voyage Home, being filmed in San Francisco.
Spock, the rest of you stay here. And the rest of you break up. You look like a cadet review.
This is the first time since the series when there is individual focus on the characters. When the dialogue is written for the characters. I'm talking, obviously, you know, when you're talking about the three starring roles, you know you're going to get very specific dialogue. But for the supporting actors as well, dialogue is indigenous to those characters. So that we each have a moment in the sun, so to speak.
Or two or three.
Yeah.
Can you help us?
Please, we're looking for the naval base in Alameda. Could you tell me where the nuclear vessels are?
Ooh, I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think it's across the bay. In Alameda.
That's what I said, Alameda. I know that.
But where is Alameda?
1986, that's the 20th anniversary of Star Trek. Did any of you ever dream that you would still be doing the same characters all these years later?
Never had a doubt about it. Of course, nobody knew.
But what we were saying then was that this show probably will end after the first season because it's too good for television.
Too good.
Yeah. There was quality that we smelled here. There was
script.
integrity that we saw here.
Yeah.
We felt the caring.
Yes, and at the same time, it follows the first law of show business. It's not only a show that has great dignity and character and quality.
Did you ever hear of a doomsday machine?
No, I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
It's a weapon built primarily as a bluff. It's never meant to be used. So strong, it could destroy both sides in a war.
But it follows that first law of show business, and that's to entertain. It's a high adventure. We're going in peaceful exploration, but every week there was a great adventure.
Oh, we just can't stand around while our ship is being attacked. Scotty, you've got to get me some maneuvering power.
I can't repair warp drive without a space dock.
Then get me impulse power, half speed, quarter speed, anything. If we can get this Hulk moving, maybe we can do something.
Aye. The impulse engines are still in fair shape. I might coax them.
Then get moving.
New York Times did a review of you all in Star Trek 3, and they said, quote, "The regulars have learned to relax and stop trying to look as young as they did in the TV series days, and consequently, much of the poignancy of this film derives from its acknowledgement of the passing of time." How comfortable are all you with that passage of time?
Obviously, a lot of time had elapsed from the TV series to the motion picture, and we looked different, so it would have been very awkward for us to do that. But it was a continuation of that whole philosophy of Star Trek, change. And with that passage of time comes, hopefully, growth, acquisition of more knowledge, and hopefully wisdom with the passage of time, death, the loss that comes with it.
Perhaps we could cover a little philosophical ground.
Life, death, life, things of that nature. I did not have time on Vulcan to review the philosophical disciplines. Come on, Spock, it's me, McCoy. It would be impossible to discuss the subjects without a common frame of reference. You mean I have to die to discuss your insights on death?
There is no greater exploration thrill than space. Speaking for myself, I am constantly getting mail from young people who are now in medicine because of McCoy. And those things alone make it worthwhile to you. You think, why in the hell am I here? What am I doing? But when you get a letter like that, it makes it all worthwhile.
Tomorrow, more treats for Trekkies. Joan continues her visit with the cast of Star Trek. They reminisce about their favorite episodes. And right now it's 4 minutes before 8. We'll be right back.
Tomorrow, Senator Barry Goldwater. It is now 8 minutes before 8, and time to get on board the Starship Enterprise for part 2 of my talk with the Star Trek cast. This is the same cast that's worked together all these years in the Star Trek TV series and all the movies, but now they will not be part of the brand new Star Trek TV series that is being planned. So how do they feel about that?
When I first heard about it, all I thought was, and I was so surprised later at my reaction, all I could think of was, free at last. Free at last, my God almighty. I thought the burden of being a whore for 20 years, is finally over. They're going to do something new, and you don't have to worry about it. And then that was the good news. The bad news is that they're going to keep us around to do all the movies.
The next 100 years would certainly have progress and advances much more accelerated than, well, even in 1,000 years in our past history, so that world will be quite different. And, the story possibilities that could be explored with Gene Roddenberry's imagination, integrity, and humanity, I think it'd be very exciting. But it certainly would not be our Star Trek.
All right, 2 programs. City on the Edge of Forever and Trouble with Tribbles. These seem to be the most popular with the real Trekkies. What do you think it is about those 2 episodes that just really seem to hit home?
I know for myself, watching City on the Edge of Forever, I was really very touched. It transcends the genre and becomes just a very human story that anybody can relate to. A love story.
With the A-bomb and with their V-2 rockets to carry them, Germany captured the world. No. And all this because McCoy came back and somehow kept her from dying in a street accident, as she was meant to.
No, Jim!
You deliberately stopped me, Jim. I could have saved her. Do you know what you just did? He knows, Doctor. He knows.
I was very touched by the whole story and the very tragic ending to the story. So it's just a beautiful love story, I think.
All right, how about The Trouble with Tribbles?
I got to bring the sweet little furry things on. I think it may be one of the first times we did a show with animals, or if at all, and talk about an animal in the future. But it was also the first comedy we did. First time that humor was really, really introduced to Star Trek.
You running a nursery, Lieutenant?
Oh, Captain. Well, I hadn't intended to, sir, but the Tribble had other plans.
Does anyone else have a favorite episode? If you could just save one.
The Naked Time.
Oh, is that your favorite too? He has impeccable taste.
Richelieu, beware!
We realized what we wanted to be or do, and of course Sulu was a 17th century swashbuckler, and he kidnapped,
grabs Uhura and says,
I'll protect you, fair maiden.
And she said,
Sorry, neither.
That line, I think, slipped by a lot of people, particularly on the early hour.
You had some wonderful words, I think, from Martin Luther King, did you not, about your role? Didn't he say some very nice things?
Yes. He told me that it was important what I was doing. It was a point in time when I met him when I was dissatisfied with the role, with the cuts that were coming, with my part being cut a lot. And he said, no matter how small that role becomes, you're 10 feet tall. He says, because you represent not only black people and a breakthrough, he said, you represent womanhood and you represent the future. He says, you're doing this for all of us. And it gave me a new insight to my character and a new insight into the interplay and what I thought and felt about all of the people that I worked with.
And they're all really a great group, and yes, that was Joan Collins with Captain Kirk in that one scene, and William Shatner will be with us tomorrow for part 4 of our series. Right now it's 56 after, and we'll be back right after this. It is now 8 minutes before 8. All this week I've been visiting the crew of the Starship Enterprise. Today, the man who runs the ship, Admiral James T. Kirk, or William Shatner, if you will. William Shatner and the rest of his friends are back again in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home.
Star Trek IV I haven't seen it, is going to be wonderful entertainment. It's going to be lighthearted in many ways, amusing, very funny, and it's a whole other look at Star Trek and its people.
The use of language has altered since our arrival. It is currently laced with, shall I say, more colorful metaphors. Double dumbass on you, and so forth.
You mean the profanity?
Yes.
That's simply the way they talk here. Nobody pays any attention to you unless you swear every other word. You'll find it in all the literature of the period.
For example?
Well, the collected works of Jacqueline Suzanne, the novels of Harold Robinson.
The Giants.
With the character, Captain Kirk, how satisfied are you with the way the character has developed?
I'm quite gratified. What we're finding is that as the actors get older, that we write for that aging process. It's unique in the annals of entertainment, I think. That one of the Star Treks I couldn't read too easily.
You open this one.
I'm almost afraid to. What is it? Klingon aphrodisiacs?
No.
Bones. This is charming.
For most patients your age, I usually recommend Retinox 5.
I'm allergic to retinox.
Exactly. Happy birthday.
I've been in front of the camera all my adult life and a good part of my life before I was an adult. And I can see the process, and it happens in front of my eyes because I'll tune into a show that was made 20 years ago, and you can see the difference, that what the things that age bring. And no amount of oil of Olay is going to eradicate it as much as we would hope for. So you have to kind of accept your age a lot. It's brought home more forcefully than in any other way.
You were a classical actor. I mean, you went to Broadway, then you were in the golden age of television, a lot of shows. Did you worry about the fact that people would see you only as Captain Kirk for so long? Was that a concern?
I guess it was for a long time. I seem to have mellowed out on it. Yes, Captain Kirk is a burden as well as a benefit. I haven't seen the people who have said, well, no, he's Captain Kirk. All I know is that I'm offered a great deal of work, and I do some of it, and so the benefits far outweigh anything that I could say detrimental.
Klingons called you a tin-plated, overbearing, swaggering dictator with delusions of godhood.
Is that all?
No, sir. They also compared you with that Danubian slime devil.
I see.
And then they said that you were...
I get the picture, Scotty.
Yes, sir.
And after they said all this, that's when you hit the Klingons.
No, sir.
What was it they said that started the fight?
They called the Enterprise a garbage scow.
You hit the Klingons because they insulted the Enterprise, not because they...
Well, sir, this was a matter of pride.
If all of a sudden the government said, okay, we're in need of celluloid, we're going to scrap all the old Star Trek series, except for one, you can keep one. Do you have a favorite?
No, what I would tell the government would be, take them all, we'll make them again. Let's do something new.
And the new Star Trek IV will be released next week. Star Trek is the brainchild of a man named Gene Roddenberry, and tomorrow you'll meet him. Right now it's 7:56, and we'll be back right after this from Stouffer's.
Next hour,
Gene Roddenberry is the creator and producer of Star Trek. I met with this thoughtful, friendly man in his office at Paramount Studios. He had a lot to say about what we see on our television screens today, and of course Star Trek. Although the show was his idea, the network at first had ideas of its own.
If there is a truism in television, it is that no successful show ever gave a network exactly what it wanted. But that isn't because the networks are dopes or dunderheads. It's because of the different way an artist looks at things and the different way business people look at things. And that's as it should be. I'm sure Michelangelo had the same problem when he was doing his beautiful things.
What about the cast of the show? I'm told that NBC only wanted white males on the bridge, no women, no blacks.
When I brought in a mixed racial crew, both the network and Desilu Studios, which had it at that time, came in saying, what are you doing? You're going to ruin us. And then when I insisted on it, then the advertisers came in, the agencies, and said, if you show this black girl as an officer dealing with white people on that basis, you're going to be barraged with hate letters, and whole areas of the country are going to refuse to handle your show. And we often forget that's how the country was then. One thing that makes me love viewers and love the audience is that we never received in 20 years one single letter of that kind.
The pilot, the original pilot, was really a lot different from the shows that we know today, wasn't it?
Yes, the original pilot even had a different captain, Jeff Hunter, who was a fine actor. The only people that were in the original that stayed over was Leonard Nimoy, although he looked quite a bit different then, and he was not the emotionless Vulcan then. Yeah, he tended to grin and show nervousness in that first pilot.
Records show the tallest group has never been explored. Solar system similar to Earth, 11 planets. Number 4 seems to be Class M. Oxygen atmosphere.
It's hard to think about it now with all the success of Star Trek, but the original series that ran on TV was not that big a hit.
No, it was only with young-minded people. But we were quite a different United States then. One can over-intellectualize what we did on Star Trek, but we always told stories of action, adventure. There was always a want, a need, a goal, feelings. And we were the only show, for example, during all of the dreadful Vietnam affair, only dramatic show that ever talked against Vietnam. But as in the case of Jonathan Swift, we set it on another planet.
If this
planet is to develop in the way it should, we must equalize both sides again.
Jim, that means you're condemning this whole planet to a war that may never end. It could go on for year after year, massacre after massacre.
All right, Doctor.
Kirk playing essentially the role of our presidents in those years where he'd gotten into it and he was having trouble getting out of it. And it's a pity. Vietnam would have ended many years sooner if it had been on dramatic shows on television, because the impact of these dramatic shows. I have two aunts, for example, maiden aunts. If Dr. Marcus Welby had come out and said something against Vietnam, my aunts would have carried placards.
Do you remember the 20th century brush wars on the Asian continent?
It went on bloody year after bloody year.
Well, what would you have suggested? The only solution is what happened back then. Balance of power.
Mass communications is our language today between one another. And we can't say, well, let's not really talk about anything serious on television. That is a criminal statement and a criminal intention. In my opinion, the audience is way ahead of our government leaders. I think the government leaders should catch up with the audience, and then we'd have 21st century dreams right now.
Many such journeys are possible. Let me be your gateway.
Captain, the Enterprise is up there. They're asking if we want to beam up.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Gene Roddenberry, a very creative and very nice man. We'll be right back.